Good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Mayor and Council for April the 11th. It is now 6 p.m., so I'm going to call this meeting to order. And I'm going to welcome here for the invocation the chaplain for Villa Rica Police Department, Chris Tanton, and then following that, we'll have Sergeant Tim McKinnon lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Chaplain, if you'll come up, and then if everybody will rise, please.
Just for the kindness that you show us every day. And I pray that you'd continue to watch over us, keep us safe, and just help us to thrive as a city and just be a light to those around us. We love you and praise you in Jesus' name. Yes. Amen.
Amen. All right, officer, over there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. You all may be seated. Give me just a minute to tell you a little bit about these two folks. Now, our chaplain's been here a few times, and we appreciate his service, so you may have heard his bio before, so just bear with me. Chris and his wife, Abby, moved to Villa Rica at the beginning of 2020 after spending almost 4 years serving as missionaries in the Dominican Republic. Before that, he taught math for 12 years at Mount Perrin Christian School in Kennesaw. He currently runs a small business out of his home and is a member of West Hills Church. He actively serves as the chaplain at the Villa Rica Police Department. And, sir, we appreciate your service to our department. I would also say I was just recently in the Dominican Republic, so maybe you could teach me something about that. And I didn't know you taught math. I don't remember that. So thank you for being here, though. All right, Sergeant Tim McKinnon, did he run out of here?
Yeah.
He did. I'll tell you a little bit about him, though. 13 years of service with Villa Rica Police Department, born and raised in the Atlanta area. He has 4 wonderful children, 2 of which are adults, and U.S. Army veterans. One's actively serving now. That's pretty good. And he has a strong love for God, family, and country. Honorably serving the citizens of Villa Rica is something he takes a lot of pride in, and we appreciate him as well. So please give these folks a round of applause, if you would. All right, we don't have any ceremonial presentations tonight. In fact, I expect this meeting to move rather quickly. We've got 2 modifications to the agenda that I see, and then I'll see if there are any others. I want to table item A2, which is setting the date for accepting applications for a package store, and table item B1, which is amendment to Section 2, Administration of the City of Villa Rica Zoning Code. With those changes, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
Well, what day are you going to table them
Mr.
to?
Carter.
When are you going to table them?
I apologize. Yes, let me table the package store A2 to the May meeting, the May regular meeting, and B1 to the July regular meeting. Mr. Carter, I appreciate that.
Okay. I'll make
You
a
will
motion
just make
to,
a note for those to be the regular meetings of those 2 months, Madam Clerk. All right, Mr. Carter,
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
thank you. And I have a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Thank you. All right, we are at public comment portion of the meeting, and we've got a pretty healthy little list here. So I'll go through this list first. We'll ask you to give us your name and address for the record. Then we'll give you 3 minutes. The clerk will put it up on the screen here. And then after I've gone through this list, I'll give an opportunity for anybody who may not have known to sign up. So first up is Doug Lang. Mr. Lang, if you'll come up, give us your name and address for the record.
Douglas Lang, 262 262 South Cower Road, Villa Rica, Georgia.
Yes, sir.
So I have something that's a bit of concern to me, and it's specifically about commercial traffic, commercial vehicles, and more specifically, tractor trailers, 18-wheelers. And I know some of this is going to be addressed, the traffic with the bypass, but my concerns right now are maybe doing some things to get things better under control before we have more truck traffic or additional traffic that's coming in. And again, more specifically, what I'm talking about is the use of roads that are off limits to the 18-wheelers. South Carroll Road, I think Rockmart Road, Pumpkin Town Road. These are roads that are marked no trucks over 6 wheels, and the 18-wheelers go up there all day. Now, I live on South Carroll Road, and you could say, well, why'd you move onto a main street if you don't, love the train noise, don't care that there's a chiropractor next to me, the mixed zoning, all good, except, in doing our due diligence, one of the things that we considered in buying the house is that there were no tractor trailers supposed to be coming there. There's a lot of people that text and go off the side of the road on South Carroll Road. And if they do, some of us have houses that are 20, 30, maybe 30 feet from South Carroll Road. And if a car comes off the road, they land on your front lawn, hit your pear tree, and maybe tap your front porch. But the speed limits, as everybody knows, is basically like 45 in the center and 35. So those trucks are doing like what everybody else is doing. 45 means 55. And not legally, but that's what everybody does. And then, so when they hit Spring, if they're coming from 61 and hit Spring Street as they're getting here, they're rolling pretty good. Mm-hmm. And if those were to hit the houses with only 20-foot setback or 30-foot setback, that'd go through the front porch, into the foyer, through your kitchen, and wouldn't stop until it hit your barbecue grill or your picnic table in the backyard. So maybe I'm embellishing a little bit. But anyway, I'm just wondering if there's something we can do. I took a look at some of the signage. I would say it's in my opinion, it's lacking. Just to give you an example, coming from 61 to this side, Highway 78, the first sign is over 300 feet past where you enter the road. So that's about 4 tractor trailers before they even see the sign. And what are they going to do then? They're already committed.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for running over.
No,
but I
that's fair.
did talk to the chief about this. He was very receptive, made time for me immediately, and I think he had some ideas or suggestions of.
Sure, and that's something that we're constantly looking at, and I'd be happy to talk to you outside of this venue. I know where you live, and I can particularly sympathize that if any vehicle ran off the road over there, they're in your kitchen. Because you're literally on the street, on both streets, springing. But we can talk outside of this venue. All right, next up, David Hadlick. I wasn't sure what that name was for a second. Laddick. All right. Let me tell that H to be quiet.
All right.
All
Dave
right.
Laddington, 9783 Reflections Drive in Mirror Lake, Villa Rica, Georgia. Couple things here. I know today we're going to have a little discussion on the comprehensive planning activities. I just had similar question on the previous ones. There was one back in 2013, the short-term work program it was called, and there was a report of accomplishments on the activities, which we had 9 complete, 7 underway, 27 postponed, 22 dropped, about 65 tasks. And I was wondering if there's any further update to that program that we would be having a new report. The next one is our current comprehensive plan, and the one that was done in 2019, and I haven't seen any report of accomplishments on that. And that was quite extensive. That had about 85 tasks to it. You had 9 action plans, and you had an estimated cost of around $38 million. but I haven't seen a report on it, so I was just wondering if anything was going to be done to update those projects or where we stand. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dave. All right. Next up is Michael Young. Good to see you. Saw you earlier at the work session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Young, 9634 Coastal Point Drive here in Villa Rica. I'm a little concerned that a council member is advocating for spending unbudgeted money when the position of that council member was not to keep the millage rate the same for this budget, and in fact to lower it significantly. It's not an emergency expense, but it's unbudgeted money. Yes, there are benefits, but you can't quantify the benefits. So I don't understand why you would not support the budget that was submitted by the city, but you want to spend more that's not budgeted.
All right. Thank you. Angela O'Neill, you're back.
I'm back.
You used up more than 3 minutes this morning. I'm going to need to take a few seconds off of this.
I did, Mayor Gill.
I'm just
I
kidding.
did
I'm
it.
just kidding. Come on.
That was a lesson learned.
Give us your name and address for the record, and we'll still give you 3.
Yes, Angela O'Neill, 364 West Bankhead Highway, Villa Rica, Georgia. That's my business address.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm here basically to ask for the city to consider partnering with my organization. We specialize in workforce development and small business development training. We have been presented with an opportunity to expand our training here in the Carroll County area, and I'm hoping you all will consider that. We have been in conversation with various members here in the community. We actually have a proposed plan to where we could provide funding to support our initiative and also support the economy here in Villa Rica. I got a few more minutes. Okay, I did bring with me some brochures if anyone is interested in hearing more about what we have to offer. Spectrum, which is our local communications company, has provided us with $50,000 to provide services or expand services here in this community. And I'm very excited to be able to reskill and upskill learners here and anyone else that is interested in learning more about expanding their business. That's all I'm gonna say. Thank
Okay.
you. See, I did good.
You did good. You saved those minutes. I'll say to you the same thing I said to Mr. Lang. If you will reach out to me, I'll meet with you, and we'll see if there's anything that we can possibly do on that, okay? Thank you. All right, next up, Rhonda McCullers. Pull it down.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Um,
Up. We need your name and address.
My name is Rhonda McCullers, and my address is 401 North Lost Lake Cove, Villa Rica, Georgia.
Thank you. We don't recognize you. Now we do.
Okay, I am here because earlier I heard some conversation about the consideration of adding another concert to this year's lineup. And my concern is that right now, April through September, we have an event every single month that we have to find volunteers for, and we are short volunteers, so I'm going to need everybody in here to volunteer for something. We have the luncheon tomorrow. We don't have volunteers for that. Couldn't even get 2 people. I'm sad to say that. I am the president of the board, the Main Street Association board, so I'm going to have a meeting with my people. But April through September, we have an event every month, and we're having a hard time getting volunteers. And I'm afraid that what will happen if we add another event is that staff will have to work something. I know that was mentioned for the thing tomorrow, and I don't want people that work all day to have to come and work all night either. So that's one of my concerns. So I'm asking you guys, if you do consider adding an event, please consider getting us some volunteers. Volunteer yourself and bring 3 people with you to help volunteer, because it takes a lot of us to pull these things off. And while I'm up here saying that, thank you to the police officers that work out there, the people who clean up. I know they're doing their due diligence thing, but it's a mess out there every time we have one. Thank you to everybody who shows up, who helps out, who cleans up. But again, I'll ask you, if you consider adding another event, please consider our volunteers and volunteering and getting us some more volunteers. Thank you so much.
All right, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you thanking all those folks too, because I think we don't do that enough. The folks who work those events work really, really long hours, and it's not enough to say, well, they're already at work sometimes, because they do start out in that, in that capacity when a concert's on a Friday, but they end up staying till 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning getting that place cleaned up.
I'm sorry, can we know how to get in touch?
Oh, yeah, well, you can catch her in a few minutes. She'll be happy to come over and see you. All right, let me move on, though. So I've reached the end of my list. Is there anybody here who did not sign in but would like to have their 3 minutes of fame? All right, seeing none, I will close the public comments portion of the meeting. And I will move to council updates. Do I have any council members who would like to be recognized for some comments? Ms. McPherson.
Yeah. Wanted to mention there was legislation at the state level last year. Trying to remember it was SB Senate Bill 245. Permanently banned state and local government from discriminating against citizens based on vaccine status. Sometimes it's called the no vaccine passport, so that people can avail themselves of government services and that not be something that blocks them from it. This year, they added SB 1, which repealed the sunset clause on that bill. It was scheduled to expire, I think, in '24, and that meant it removed the sunset. It is now permanent law, unless they change something else. More importantly, something I wanted to mention is the other night on Punkintown, Punkintown comes up a lot, somebody had a little bit too much of something in their system on Sunday evening, and they took out a couple mailboxes and a, water, we get water out of the fire hydrant. Okay, hit the fire hydrant, water pouring out, everything else. And these are the employees you usually don't see. Okay, it's the public work, public work. Some of them you'll see out there during the day, water and sewer, but they're also the ones that get called in the middle of the night, or something is frozen or this and that. And all I can say is they got over there and dealt with it. And it's a little dangerous too, it's dark. Dark. Police got there, fire department, I think, had to come because of the fire hydrant. But I just want to thank those workers for what they did. I was not personally affected. It was mainly those on the other side of the street. But they're unsung heroes that a lot of times you just don't know about. Easter night, that's what they were doing. So, thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I will close the council updates. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. So earlier today, in a long work session, the council met and discussed all of the items that I'm going to name off here in just a second in significant detail for some of them. So if you want to get any background on any of these items, go back to the work session, or you could be like Mr. Laddick here, who stayed for the entire work session, which is that's a heavy lift. So the consent agenda is a single item that encompasses all things the City Council would normally approve with little comment. Each of these items were discussed at the City Council work session, and it was the unanimous consensus of the governing body to place the following items on the consent agenda. So after I read off these items, if there are any objections, I'll hear those. If there are none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented. Consent item number 1, Business Associate Agreement, Strongside Solutions, LLC. Consent number 2, approval of intergovernmental agreement with Douglas County for local option sales tax. Consent number 3, approval of intergovernmental agreement with Douglas County for service delivery. Consent number 4, reappointment of Cheryl Bell to the Library Advisory Board. Consent number 5, alcohol agreement with Uncorked on Main for 2023 concert series at the Mill Amphitheater. Consent number 6, special event request for Prospectors Park. Consent number 7, replacement of Microsoft Surfaces with Apple iPads. Consent number 8, July 3rd fireworks display contractor recommendation. Consent number 9, July 3rd band. Consent number 10, 2023 Healthy Cities campaign and NFC grant assistance program. Consent number 11, WatchGuard body cameras. Consent number 12, auction of non-running/retired police department vehicles on govdeals.com. Consent number 13, pit car kits for training. Consent number 14, Sunset Tank demolition. Consent number 15, West Plant Pump Station Screen Addition. Consent number 16, approve the property and liability insurance renewal with GERMA, the Georgia Interlocal Risk Management Agency. Consent number 17, approve the excess cyber liability insurance renewal. Consent number 18, easement request from Georgia Power. Consent number 19, agreement with Norfolk Southern for engineering services for the Highway 78 downtown pedestrian crossing. Consent number 20, authorized staff request for traffic signal flashers from GDOT. Are there any objections to any of those items? Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as
I'll
presented?
move to adopt the consent agenda.
I have a motion from Mr. Carter to adopt the consent agenda as presented, a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. All right, governing body, A1 is the approval of the March 14, 2023 meeting minutes. Are there any additions or changes or corrections noted by any council member? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the March 14, 2023 meeting minutes as presented?
Motion to approve.
Approve those minutes. I have a motion from Ms. McPherson to approve the March 14, 2023 meeting minutes, a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? That's unanimous. All right, A3. We have tabled A2, so A3, the first reading home rule ordinance providing for board and commission terms. Mr. Mecklin.
Yes.
Moving too fast for you?
No, I'm just getting comfortable before I make the presentation here. This is a proposed change to our city charter, and it is adding a section that was not in the existing city charter, and it will create terms for all members of boards, commissions, and authorities, with the exception of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is covered under our zoning ordinance. The intent of this is to give some consistency for all positions on boards, commissions, and agents, authorities, so that the terms of office of all of those positions will terminate at the end of a year. Over the course of the years, we've had sometimes terms terminate in different months, and it's just confusing and harder for the staff to keep up with when all of the terms are ending. So we're going to make it all end on the same date, year after year after year.
Okay, before I read the ordinance, because it's not incredibly long, and I will read it, this is the first reading, is there any questions for Mr. Mecklin? All right, hearing none. This is the City of Villa Rica ordinance. Whereas Section 3.12 of the City Charter of the City of Villa Rica provides for the appointment of members to boards, commissions, and authorities of the city, and whereas the mayor and council wish to establish a uniform system for service for members of boards, commissions, and authorities, and now, therefore, be it hereby ordained by the mayor and council of the City of Villa Rica that Section 2-30 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Villa Rica be adopted as follows. 1. Section 2-30, terms for members of boards, commissions, and authorities. All terms of office for all members of boards, commissions, and authorities of the city shall run from January 1 until December 31 of each year during the term of office. The purpose of this revision is to conclude the service of each member appointed to a board, commission, and authority during their term of service on December 31 of the final year of that term. Each member of a board, commission, and authority shall continue in office until their successor has been duly appointed according to law. 2. Upon adoption of this ordinance, the city clerk shall notify all current members of boards, commissions, and authorities within the city when their term of office shall expire, and shall further prepare a master list of the expiration of the terms for all members of boards, commissions, and authorities within the city. it will be signed after the adoption, which will occur in May. Is that correct, Mr.
That's correct.
Mecklin?
We will publish notice of this for the consideration during the May meeting.
Okay, and no action beyond
No.
what we've done today?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. We will move on to A4, consideration of appearance agreement with Matt Stone for concert. This is an item that we discussed earlier today, and I'll recognize Councilwoman McPherson before we get any discussion.
Okay, so this has to do with adding a fun event, a concert, to the downtown amphitheater. The difference between this and the other concerts is that the city spends multiple thousands of dollars to put on concerts and events. It involves staff, artists, concert sound, lights, all that sort of thing. What I have offered to do is to privately fundraise a lot of the money, but I need to partner with the city on it because you don't want people sending sponsoring money to a city council person, right? I'm not an organization, I'm not a club, that sort of thing. And I have to fundraise to pay for the artist, with the band, with the main artist, the lights and sound, the advertising, and whatever food they need to take care of the band and that sort of thing. But that leads staff. And that's a number that we just got. I was working on this just before we came back because I got another email that gave us an idea of what it might cost for staff. So we still have a concert, but defrayed by the fundraising that I believe I can bring in. And the thing that makes it, I guess, very risk-free in a lot of ways, and I have worked up a budget. I know what the lights and sound's going to cost. I know what the artist is. I figured out the advertising, had a friend who works in that area, and we worked on those numbers. But what makes it, in a lot of ways, not risky is this particular artist, unlike a lot of the ones we hire, it's kind of like, hey, you pay this much money, and if you call it off or you cancel or there's a lightning storm and we don't feel safe, you're still paying us that $10,000 or whatever it is. This artist has not asked for anything until August. This is for a October 6th date, and at that point they asked for $1,700. By then, the city will have a clear idea of how much fundraising I've been able to accomplish. I plan on having it done well before then. And so I think in a lot of ways that makes it not risky, and yet it's a win-win. We get a fun event. Taxpayers didn't have to pay much for it because there still will be some staff. I'm not paying for the staff and security, or I'm not raising the money for that. And our shops, restaurants, and things downtown get people coming downtown and walking by their place. And so I've offered to do this and do the work necessary for it. If there's an issue with volunteers, I've got enough friends and things. I'll help have additional volunteers for that. I know our Main Street people work hard. And it's my understanding that they're one of the hardest working ones. And when it comes to our July 3rd event, those staff members put in 12 plus hours, not all of them, but there's people that are there 12 hours and beyond over there because the event, it's got a lot of setup, starts, earlier in the afternoon and goes late into the night. This is a 2-hour event. The main artist is about an hour and a half. I plan to get an opening, kind of easy, maybe acoustical guitar person, local, to just kind of do a half hour as people are coming in, getting ready, set up, that sort of thing. And so I'm asking the governing body for approval to be able to do this. And so that's where we are. And the only other thing I'd mention is that I did support this year's budget. I did ask for, I did want a rollback of the taxes, which basically means for property owners that they would collect, that the city would collect the same amount we did from property owners from the year before for their property, because I felt that property, house values were quite inflated, and I felt that coming out of the pandemic and everything, we didn't need to hit the property owners any harder. And we have a number of other streams of revenue. So I wasn't against the budget, and because I am a fiscal conservative, that's the reason I liked this event and the idea that I could raise private funding for it and try to have something special downtown that didn't cost much money to taxpayers. Thank you.
Okay. So, does any council member want to be recognized? Mr. Carter?
Do we have a cap on the amount that the city would be responsible for?
You asking Ms. McPherson?
I am.
Yes, sir.
I was still printing things out just before I came, so I'd have some additional documentation between our two meetings. I haven't added all of them up. Let me look at the cover sheet, because that has my amount, my budget was 13,000, and that has some cushion. That's for everything I was going to fundraise for. And it looks to me from the numbers that we got from our CFO that on the city side it would be about 2,500 security and other staff. 14,
So-
15, 5, 15, 5.
So, Mr. Carter's question is, would there be a cap? And you are saying that there would be a cap of $15,500
I mean, I'm willing to make a cap.
out of the
I mean,
city?
I'm willing to do a cap if that will help. If you want to give it a little bit of buffer, I'm okay with that too. That's a little less.
But how much of that would you be committing to raising, I think might be the question. How much would you be saying the city would?
My budget
out
is,
at?
my budget is 13.
So you would raise 13 and you'd ask the city to pay up to 25.5. Does that sound right? Or 20?
That's,
I mean, sorry, 2,500.
according to the numbers I got from Sarah, that says security and other staff, and we took that from another concert, and that's why, because it's staff and I'm not in charge of that, and I don't handle that, and I don't do those numbers. That's based on a recent concert, August of '22. So we're basing it off numbers from one of the summer concerts.
Okay, Ms. McCoy, let me.
So it would be reasonable to say $3,000 would be a reasonable cap for the city's responsibility. That's,
Based on the numbers I've received.
okay, that gives us leeway.
All right, let's hear from Ms. McCoy.
So, when we were in the work session today, I was under the impression that it was $13,000 to put on the whole thing. And I was also under the impression, because you said it just a minute ago, that you didn't want to raise fund money, you didn't want to do fundraising until the concert was established in and stuff. But you're now saying, when I asked in the meeting what you were expecting to fundraise, now you're telling me that you're going to fundraise 13,000 and that's not the budget?
That's my part of the budget because I was not
In
able.
the work session, you said that was the whole budget.
Everything except staff, and I've put it in emails and I've sent it to a number of people, and it was on the cover sheet. Let me pull up the cover sheet.
But I understand your point about not wanting to delay this. I completely understand that. But as some of the people who've commented said, we are stewards of these funds. This is an unbudgeted item. And we're in here and it seems like the numbers are either ill-prepared or they're still getting wonky. And I have no reason to apologize, but I do this for a living and I look at numbers for a living. Until the numbers make sense, it's going to be hard for me to, and the numbers do not make sense. Because if I went into work and I told an auditor, yeah, my budget was 13,000. No, that's what this organization gave me. I'm still getting this. I'm getting my match or in kind or whatever from this organization. I would fail that audit. And so, I mean, it's what I guess what I want is what is this straightforward to the point? What is the city going to be out if something goes wrong?
Okay, so that's what we were just covering. if you'll see, the amount of the performance is 5,800.
I saw that.
Okay, that's there. And then down here is anticipated to be approximately 13,000. David, do you want to say anything about that? Because you helped me put the cover sheet together. That's the projected amount for band, light, sound, advertising, and he said accommodations is not known, and I clarified in the meeting that there's no request of accommodations from the band prior to the concert, is anticipated to be approximately 13,000. Further action, staff can be directed to prepare an itemized accounting. And I did say that it would be hard for me to raise funds for something until I can go to people and say that it's an event
So
that
if you
is
raise more than
approved to occur.
13,000? So if you raise 15,000?
I would be more than glad to pay more of
How are
the
we going to
city's
account for that?
cost.
How are we going to account for that?
It'll be written to the city. Just like it was the last time when we did this in 2019 with the Blues Brothers. The city was, because you didn't want, it wouldn't be proper for me to be receiving checks from people. So sponsors.
Yes, because I said that in the last meeting.
Sponsors would write them directly to the city.
Okay, you know where I stand.
Yeah, I'll speak to what the legal liability of the city is, and I can't speak to the fundraising because that's something that's in the
Right.
future, and we don't know whether that's going to happen or not. The city's legal liability, we're going to enter into a contract with a performer for $5,800. Once we enter into that contract, then we are obligated to pay it, whether or not any funds are raised. If they are, then that's great, that offsets it. If it's not, then we owe $5,800. We're also going to enter into a contract with the lighting people, and again, I don't know what the exact amount is. You've got estimates, but we'll enter into a contract with them. We're going to owe them that money regardless. And if for whatever reason the concert doesn't go off, then there are expenses that you can cut out of there because we won't pay staff if we don't have it. But we will owe for the lighting and the performers regardless. The city will.
Okay.
To be offset, hopefully, by whatever is brought in. But our legal liability is the band and the lights.
And do let me reiterate that there's no down payment on that until August, and that's $1,700. I think it'll be clear by then the commitments that we have on fundraising. And let me just mention one other thing, and I'm sorry, because I did fail to say this, that there's revenue that can be applied as well that we tend to get at concerts. I'll give you an example. This is from the last one that I did with the prior mayor, Alabama Blues Brothers concert. And just then, and that was 2019, prior to COVID, there was $980 brought in reserve seating funds. That could be applied to the concert cost. And there was also $530 in vendor booths. If the city chose, they could apply that money toward concert cost. And so that's just an example of a way to defray the cost of the event.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, my question was, so I think this is more for maybe Tom or Sarah, is that if we do receive funds in, is that going to go against the expenses? I know this is a very technical question.
You don't net them.
Okay,
You budget the revenue, you budget the expense.
okay. Okay.
So, I mean, you can do the net in your head, but the accounting, you record both.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
Okay. All right, does anybody else have anything to add? I still have the opinion that we either need to make this a city event or a private event, and neither of those seem to have a really easy way to get from A to B. I mean, if you do a private event, then you have to get some organization to handle the funding, and then you're going to work with these various boards. I mean, when you talk about making it a city event, I think what you have to do is get the city to then go about this project the way they would any other talent. which I guess they would vet them. I don't know what all goes into that, but then create a budget and bring it to the council and say, this is the budget and this is what we're asking you to approve. But I think that was rejected earlier today, so I don't know what else to offer here. So you said that you were prepared to make a motion. If there's no other comments, then I'll just hear a motion. Who would like to be recognized? Ms. McPherson.
What's my cap, Danny?
I don't want to.
Okay, 13, 14, 15. Okay, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16. Let's play it safe. Because I've got to change the motion now. Okay, so 13. These are based on numbers from last summer, so I'd feel a little better if I added 1,000 on there, just in case. I'd rather, if we're going to put a cap.
I already added 500, so.
Yeah, okay, so 3,000.
Consideration that we're gonna have to enter into contracts with the lighting and the talent.
Exactly like we did in 2019, exactly.
So the amount would have to at least cover that.
Well, there's no cost for signing the contract. Well, and you know when the artist money is due. The light and sound is separately. I do not know the exact date on when that person, because at this point I only have a proposal. Because we didn't have an approved event, it's kind of hard to lock people into something that you don't have approved. So let's say 16, with a $16,000 cap. Okay. I move to approve the agreement with Matt Stone as attached hereto and to further authorize staff to organize the event. Based on the agreement, I further move to budget the funds necessary to cover all expenses of the event not covered by donations and sponsorships with a $16,000 cap.
All right, I have a motion from Ms. McPherson, as she just read off. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mr. Carter. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor? All opposed? That motion will fail 3-2. All right, let's move on to B1 was tabled to July. So we're going to do B2, agreement approving Three Rivers Regional Commission to conduct comprehensive planning activities on behalf of the city of Villa Rica. Ron?
Good evening, and I'll be quick.
All right.
So,
No, do you have a presenter?
we do,
Okay.
yes.
All right, go ahead.
So, at the last meeting, if we all recall, we announced that the comprehensive plan for 2023 process is being kick-started off. And as a part of that, Three Rivers Regional Commission was chosen to move forward with our comp plan. And tonight we do have a presentation kind of going over what that comp plan process is going to be looking like moving forward as we embark on this process for this year. So I have Paul Jarrell here with Three Rivers to come and give a short presentation for us.
All right, Paul. We haven't seen you in a while.
It has been a minute.
By accident, I saw you at lunch the other day,
That's
though.
right. I'm
At the
everywhere,
corner
you know.
cafe,
Yeah.
is that what they call that?
Right.
Yep.
Good to see y'all.
So good to see you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome. Go ahead.
Good to see Ms. Marshman. She's served on our council for many years.
Yeah.
It's good to see you again. I'll keep this brief. This is only a 10-page presentation. It just
Whoa.
kind of gives a...
Only 10 pages.
I'll be quick. That's one of them right there.
Oh, that's...
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
So, you all are probably used to comprehensive planning by now. We update these plans every 5 years. You did a pretty thorough job back in 2018, 2019 to do that, so we're not going to try to reinvent anything here, but it is good to kind of relook at your goals and your strategies, and of course your work program that the gentleman mentioned earlier as being a major part of that update is just to do a report of accomplishments on your previous 5-year work program, and that happens every time. So. And the plan, quickly, is just a community-based vision for the future, and it's supposed to help the council make future decisions for future development and other initiatives. You assess your needs, you establish goals and strategies, which are already listed in your current plan, so you're not going to be reinventing anything. And you also want to build upon previous and current planning efforts that have happened since then. You do have a number of things that have been taken on in the city since the previous plan update. You've got a rural zone program established here. You're looking at TADs, the tax allocation districts. You've got a transportation plan, your LCI study, and of course now your new GIC group, your community housing group. And then, of course, you want to prioritize your implementation plan. So all that kind of feeds into the new comprehensive plan work program. You'll report on the last plan program, and you'll establish a new one for the next 5 years, which is your very specific priority projects that you want to get done that you'll apply funds for, set aside budget money for, and try to find funding opportunities for. All of this process also keeps the city, the QLG status up and going. That's your qualified local government status, which makes the city eligible for permits, grants, and other funding. And of course, all of this comes under the state law of 1989, the Georgia Planning Act. When we plan, we're updating the plan every 5 years, but we're looking 20 years ahead. So we're thinking vision-wise, strategy-wise, 20 years ahead, which happens, very quickly. And then who's all involved? Well, basically everyone. So as we see here today, it kind of begins with the elected officials and then ends with the elected officials. But it also involves city staff, us at the regional commission as kind of the movers and shakers for the plan update, the steering committee that will be established, and of course will involve the public. And as part of that public participation part, we include the steering committee as part of that because we consider them community stakeholders. The other two required portions of the steering committee are at least one elected official and someone representing the economic development sector of the community. And we'll have different open house / community visioning events. You've already had a few before this process has started. It's just kind of a way of canvassing the local government and your community on other projects that you've had going on. So we'll kind of piggyback on that and do some additional public outreach events as well. We'll probably put a community survey together to put out there for people to take a quick survey and give us their feedback. And then we'll have a 30-day plan review period once the plan is drafted. Again, back to that plan steering committee, the purpose for them is just to oversee and guide the development of the plan update. And as I mentioned before, it must include one elected official and someone representing the economic development sector. And those meetings will be topic-led, so we'll have a meeting that is kind of devoted to different topics. And the plan framework, all of this kind of includes, again, the community goals, your needs assessment, your future land use discussions. Since you guys are a part of the Atlanta Metropolitan Planning Organization, you have to do some extra transportation narrative, and then your community work program, as I mentioned before. I just plopped in your current future land use map in there just to kind of see what we'll be looking at. This is your current future land use map. This is the official future land use map of the city at the moment. So we'll be taking a look at that as well, and we already kind of have been kind of preliminary wise. And here's just a kind of a quick overview of our proposed timeline. So here we are in April. You've already had some public outreach events prior to us getting started, kind of doing some other initiatives. The official start of the comp plan update is this public hearing here, and then we'll be moving into our other events, steering committee meetings, community outreach, that type of thing, with the end game being having your plan adopted by either September or October. And that's it for me. I'm the project lead for this, but I've got my colleagues Stephanie Wagner and Shari Selk, and for the mapping portion, I think we may do some of the mapping in-house, but we have her on backup just in case. But that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you for coming here. I'll see if the council has any questions for you, but let me ask the clerk one thing. Has this been sent out to the council members? You just got it. Will you send everybody a copy of it? Send me a copy and send everybody a copy. I didn't see it, so I wanted to make sure.
Absolutely.
All right, council, do you have any questions for Paul? All right, easy
Thank you.
enough.
All right,
Thank you for
great.
being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being brief and comprehensive on the comprehensive plan. Okay, let's go to C1. Recreation fee schedule update. Ms. Tracy, come on back up. All right, council, we discussed this a little bit earlier today. I say a little bit, but I think it was a lot bit. So we can sort of skip over the introduction to it. Let's see if council has any questions at this point. Anybody? All right, so do you have the item pulled up? Is there a motion on this?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Carter.
I move to approve a new Parks and Recreation fee schedule to become effective May the 1st, 2023.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter to approve the new fee schedule effective May 1, 2023. I have a second from Ms. Marchman. Any discussion? Yes. All right, Ms. McPherson.
Did you pull the charge for the splash pad?
I did not.
You did not? Okay.
No.
All right. Do y'all feel real good and clear about how that money's going to be collected from people and that it'll be simple enough for people to show up and reserve and get their kids or grandkids or whatever kids they're watching in?
Councilman McPherson, what we want to try to do is get this established so we can start advertising it, talking to people about it, getting it in signage so we can have that relationship with the people so they know it's not a surprise to them when they come the very first day of Memorial Day weekend. We want that to be put out to the public in our media efforts. We have the newsletter. Ken indicated he wanted to do some other types of publicity to get that out. So I think if we can educate the folks ahead of time, we can make that be a manageable process.
And if it ends up that it's really hard, are you willing to flex and maybe move back and maybe not charge or make it simpler in some sort of, the thing that still just kind of gets me is I just wish it could have gone by the advisory board and gotten a little bit more input from citizens and things before we made the change, just on that one aspect, not the other. I don't believe I have the votes to go any different from it, but I would have been more comfortable with it. But I know you're getting ready, you'll be opening up in May too, the end of May, so, okay, thank you.
All right, any other? All right, Ms. McCoy.
So if we have to pivot, do you have to come back to the council?
Probably.
Okay, that was my question.
I mean, if we don't charge, then you won't be setting a fee. Am I saying that right, Tom? They won't be setting a fee, obviously, so that.
Well, they would have to make a decision on not charging too.
If we.
Or
Yeah,
if
let-
you
Yeah, okay.
pivot, if there's a pivot to not use, to simplify, not use the QR code, whatever, do you have to come back to the council or can you operationally make that? Okay,
It would be a cash,
okay.
it would be cash.
I,
I mean, it could be some square, but it would be a lot of cash because
Okay.
of the amount of $2.
okay.
Okay, so is there anybody else? Because I'm gonna have the last word on this. Anybody? Okay. And it's real simple. I'm gonna take the vote in a second, but I just want to say this: which would be the same for any other department, anything else going on in the city. If you get into this process and it feels like it needs to be tweaked, obviously,
Certainly.
come back, take it through your chain and bring it back. Everything we do here is not etched in stone, but this is what we're going to do to move us forward now. All right, I have
Just for some backup, the charging was based on what the city of Marietta does, what the city of Kennesaw does. So we're not doing something that other organizations aren't doing. The manner in which we're taking the payment may be. I don't know. I did not dive into how they handled that on their end, but we felt like taking the cash exchange out of the equation was the best thing for us.
Yeah, no, I still think it's a good. All right, Tom.
We're not talking about this, but controlling the crowd is a big piece of this,
That's right.
right? I mean, and when you lose that registration function, you lose that. And then you just turn people away at the gate. And I don't think we want to go there either.
See, having a
So we need to
nominal,
make this work.
having this nominal fee is really, because it's a nominal fee.
Nominal.
It's really about folks just not just showing up in droves. You have some sort of a commitment to being on this. That's why when this came up some months back, I I was in favor because I knew this was the only way we were going to be able to get a handle on this. How we collect the money or those kinds of things, I just want you to be mindful that you can come back if that needs to happen. I mean, Councilman McPherson is not wrong. I mean, there may
Certainly.
be things that we need to tweak, but for now, I think the plan that you've got is, I don't know what's flying around here, is good enough. All right, all right, Miss, I said I was going to get the last word on this.
Well, I only
She heard me, that's why she.
All
right, go ahead.
Well, would there be a time limit on the groups that's coming in?
It's an hour and a half.
Yes, ma'am. We have it broken down into sessions so we can get rid of this crowd and bring in a new crowd. And that's not to collect more money.
No.
That's
I
just to get more people the
Yeah,
experience.
that's what I was good to.
And again, there's two purposes, and that's to keep folks from dropping their child off
Oh, yeah.
all day and us becoming a daycare.
Right.
That is not the function of the splash pad. So we're trying to kill multiple birds with a stone a couple of times.
And for those who don't know, we tried this without those guardrails to start with. And we learned from that it's a mess. That's where this policy developed from, is that we tried it that way. Okay, anybody else? All right, Ms. McPherson.
I'm glad that you got the advantage of hearing about this several months ago. We got to hear about it last week.
Well,
So it's a lot harder for us to process. We knew nothing about the details of how this was supposed to play out. So we haven't had time to ponder or talk to staff until today. The first presentation we got was today, but we could read our stuff. I just wanted to make sure that whatever the age or technology savvy person came with children, that it would be simple enough for them to, whatever this scan or receipt and reserve and all that it wouldn't be complicated for them to do to bring the kids to play. That was my main concern.
We can certainly pivot if we need to.
all right, all in favor? All right, that's unanimous. All right, Tracy, do you have something else? Yes, C2, July 3rd, mobile covered stage. Okay, this one was also discussed at length earlier today. So council, you have, and actually these 2 and 3 go together. So let's open this up for discussion. Who would like to be recognized?
I will.
All right, Mr. Carter.
I had asked you earlier during the day, had you contacted his references? Did you contact them?
I reached out to 2 of the other references. Ms. McPherson reached out to one. I reached out to 2 of the others. I got in touch with the other with one of them. He had worked with the low bid. Chris Brady had worked with him on a number of events. He sent me aerial footage from his Instagram account, and the crowds were nothing. I mean, like this crowd versus a concert, the difference. There's no comparison in the scope of what we're trying to accomplish and what he was providing services for. He also told me that Mr. Brady was a sound technician and had always worked for others, and now he's venturing out on his own and trying to do his own thing. So when he turned his bid in to the park, he was not even sure about how that process worked. I talked to some of my staff this afternoon after we left here, and they said they had to walk him through the process of submitting a bid. So, again, I'm just not willing to roll the dice on that at this time. Not for this event. I mean, we can have some small events and invite him to come out and let me see him perform and erect and throw lights and sound around, lighting and sound. But on this event, I have to be firm in what I believe, and that's...
Well, I respect that, and that's really all I wanted from you is we didn't show up in our lead
Yes, sir.
sheet. It wasn't in there, so we had nothing to go by.
Certainly.
So I needed for you to reach out and at least let me know that you did try to contact the low bidder, since we're not selecting the low bidder.
Yes, sir.
And that's something that needs to show up in these sheets. Why you're not taking the low bid? Because we need to know that, because we have to look after the people's money. So
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
That's fair.
Certainly,
All right,
yeah.
thank you, Mr. Carter. All right, anybody else? Okay, so Mr. Carter, let me ask you, this, since you sort of led that discussion on both of these items earlier today, do you have the same questions, or are you satisfied with these answers for both of these items? Does anybody else have questions on either of these items? Would you please bring them up? I'm going to recognize Mr. Carter for a motion on first C2, which is the July 3rd mobile covered stage. And then I'll ask someone for the third item.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
I'll move to approve RCS Productions to provide the mobile coverage stage for the 2023 July 3rd fireworks on Monday, July 3rd at the Villa Rica Civic Center and Sports Complex to the amount of $4,185.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter to approve RCS Productions to provide the mobile covered stage for the July 3rd, 2023 fireworks on Monday, July 3rd at the Villa Rica Civic Center and Sports Complex in the amount of $4,185. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. McCoy. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Who would like to be recognized for the C3? All right, Ms. McCoy. The chief said he'd be recognized. Unfortunately, sir, that would be out of order. But I'll give her a little bit of time to pull it up. I may be moving a little fast.
I move to approve RCS Productions to provide the sound and lighting for the 2023 July 3rd fireworks, Monday, July 3rd at the Villa Rica Civic Center and Sports Complex in the amount of $9,871.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Ms. McCoy to approve RCS Productions to provide the sound and lighting for the 2023 July 3rd fireworks, Monday, July 3rd at the Villa Rica Civic Center and Sports Complex in the amount of $9,871. Have a second from Mr. Montahan. Is there any discussion? All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. All right. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Okay, let's, and I would just, let me go ahead and come up, Jennifer. I just want to throw this in because I agree with Mr. Carter, and as long as I was on the council and the mayor, I have long said that there are reasons when we might not take the low bid. Because sometimes you get what you pay for. In fact, I suspect you get it most of the time. But I agree with Mr. Carter, too, that when you have made that decision, you need to articulate it as best you can in the backup documentation, and certainly here in this room. And Tracy, I think you've done that, and I appreciate that. I don't mean to call you out here, but that goes for everybody. When you bring these items up here, these folks have a responsibility to vote on these items, and sometimes the folks at home are just simply reading through the document and to look at it and say, wait a minute, they chose to spend X amount of dollars over what another bid could have been. They don't have that backup information that you've gotten unless it's included in there. So I think it's fair to ask you to provide additional reasoning for why we might do that. Okay? All right. Welcome,
Okay.
Jennifer.
Let's
get a
started.
financial update.
This is as of February, so we'll jump right into the cash. You can see total cash is a little over $34 million, with the general fund having 11.3, water and sewer having 3.4 million, sanitation solid waste at 191,000. The Mirror Lake Connector, which is the Fuquay development agreement that we had to pull both $5 million out of the water and sewer fund, $2 million out of the general fund cash to fund this. I believe through February we had one draw from Mr. Fuquay on that, so there's just under $7 million there. The 2015 Carroll Splost is a little over $500,000. The 2016 Douglas Splost is $3.4 million, and the 2021 Carroll Splost is $6.5 million. Growth, we're still, a little bit lower than we were same time period last year. Building permits, we've had 12 year to date for 29,728. Water taps and sewer taps are at 28 and 26 respectively at 42.5 and 104,000. Local option sales tax is still performing very well. On the Carroll County side, we were 15% more than what we were the same month in 2022. which was $181,163, and Douglas County saw an increase of 12% compared to February of 2022, and we're sitting at $150,484. Property taxes, you can see the budget is at 5.2. We've collected a little over 5 million, so we're at 97% collection, with 96% collected in Carroll County and a 98% collection in Douglas County. Water and sewer is one of our enterprise funds. We are supposed to run it like a business. You can see for through the month of February of 2023, we do have a net loss of 1.1 million. The two factors that are making that be a larger loss than last year is we do not have as much or as many water and sewer taps as we did last year, as well as the debt service payment was about $240,000 more than it was the same time period last year. Sanitation and solid waste is also an enterprise fund. We are doing okay there. We have a net income of just under $50,000. While we increased our rates on the sanitation side, we also have experienced a rate increase with GFL. Last but not least, the self-funded insurance fund is doing well. We have about $1.5 million in the bank. And from the beginning of this fiscal year through the month of February, our contributions have exceeded our expenses by $257,000. And that is it.
Okay, and you know, this dashboard has really grown over the years. This started with Sarah probably back in 17 or 18, and it has just grown to be a really comprehensive page. What I'm going to ask you to do is make another change to it. It's a minor change, but when we look at the cash position and we're comparing it year over year, would you add a column to the right and show that percent, as that percent is a positive or a negative, and what that percent is? I think that could be helpful.
Increase or decrease?
That's right. And when you're just glancing at this report, you've got that in some of them, but I think in the cash, I would like to see that.
Sure.
As we see those revenues either come in higher or lower than the prior year.
Sure.
Okay, council, does anybody have any questions? Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, would you clarify, because I'm thinking of people that might be watching at home with Jeff Fuqua and how that involves money in here. Maybe clarify that even if you have to help, Tom, so people are going, what? Are we giving him money? Are we giving a developer money? I want them to be clear on what's going on when they hear our budget and the private developer's name being mixed in with that.
Tom, would you like to, or would you like me to?
Yeah.
So the Fuquay development is self-sustaining, but the city is building a road from downtown to Mirror Lake through the Cleghorn Anderson neighborhood and through the new Fuquay development. At the point in time that Fuquay was ready to get started on that road construction, we were not at the point where we were ready to issue bonds to pay for the project. So we moved cash into a separate account to reimburse him for his half of the road, intending to get that back from the bond proceeds. And we did that so that he could complete his financing, so that it didn't show that he had that to come out of pocket. So that's what we were doing.
That really helps, because
Okay.
people will not understand that.
All right, and then just as a point of further clarification, you see it coming out of the water and sewer funds because that is what the infrastructure is that he's putting in over there. But it's still right at the $7 million. It's only slightly below that now. All right, is there any other questions, Mr. Carter?
Okay, on your water sewer fund, 1.15 million looks pretty rough. We're in the hole that much in that month. Are we going to do anything about that? I mean, what do we have a proposal to fix that? That looks like we're heading in the wrong direction.
Well, it depends on the developments. Like I said, one of the reasons is because, as you can see, the water and sewer tap fees from new developments. Last year we were at 575,000. This year we've only collected 146,000. So when we adopted the budget, there were certain developments that we kind of guesstimated would begin, or that we would be receiving those tap fees, and they just have not come in yet. It's more of a timing issue. Would you say that, Tom? No? For developments?
Is it too early to panic?
Don't put him on the spot.
I mean, timing may have a wrong connotation, but we have a lot of stuff in the pipeline that's not at the point where it's generating revenue through permit fees. But
it's still costing money.
But it's not necessarily going to happen this fiscal year either. It could happen in the next fiscal year, the next fiscal. So usually a timing difference is like the difference between, is it going to be at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, and you got to look at that. But this could be a multi-year swing of time depending on the project and what interest rates do to development and whatever. What we're seeing right here is we had a loss last year at this time. So I mean, we were already spending so much money on the water and sewer side that we were losing money last year, and now we've got additional debt and less revenue. So we've made it even worse. But if you remember back to 18, when we started doing the rate increases, we built up cash in order to get ready for the debt service increase that was in the old bond. Remember, we refinanced that recently. So we refinanced to make the bond payment better in the long run, but worse in the short run. So we're seeing the worst, right? This is what we've done by going from $1.5 million to $1.8 million. It's worse in the short run by a couple $100,000, but in the long run, we don't have another really big jump like we would have had we not refinanced. But the other thing that we did was we just built up a war chest because we knew we had this project after project after project that we had to pay for on the sewer side, especially lift stations, the manhole rehab that we're doing, new water lines, and now we're going to start rebuilding, actually rebuilding lift stations. And so what we're able to do now, what we're trying to do is, if we have a project under $1 million, we're trying to just pay for it. And if it's over $1 million, we're bringing it to y'all as a potential GFA loan. Trying not to go into debt more than we need to, but trying to also not deplete all of our cash. So we're trying to find a balance between what do we do pay as you go and just pay for it when it happens versus what we have to borrow from GFA, because we know now that there's a cap on what we can borrow. Was it 10 to 12? 10 to 12
say it was
million?
around 10. Mm-hmm.
So we asked GFA, theoretically, sort of like qualifying for a mortgage when you're going out to buy a house. It was, about what can we borrow in GFA money, and what we got back was 10 or 12 million. So that's, maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 projects that we can do. We're going to eat up 10 or 12 million in loans really quickly. So at some point, we're going to do what we can do, and then we're going to have to go through another phase of time where we just accumulate assets so that we can do some more projects. So we're not out of the woods, but I mean, compared to where we were in 17, it's just no compare. You just can't compare.
You can't
even
compare,
though it doesn't
but,
look good now.
But the $3.4 million positive budget on the water sewer fund, 3 months of $1 million loss is going to eat that up. So
Yeah. Go back to the cash page.
that's what I'm looking at. It's 3.395, or 3.4 million is all the surplus we have right now, and we just lost $1 million on this month.
Yeah, but if we get the bond money back on the Mirror Lake Connector, there's $5 million of ARPA money in there that we can spend
we could
on
sure use
sewer.
that.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, $5 million of ARPA money would pay for a couple of pretty good-sized projects. I mean, a $2.5 million project is that's like a big new lift station and a lot of force main. So a lot of things have to work together for us to continue to make the place better, because the capital that we need is significant.
Yeah, I mean, it's one bite at a time, but in 17 and 18, we could have never thought about pay-as-you-go. I mean, we couldn't pay for anything. So, I mean, it's night and day. I mean, you said a lot of things, but at the end of the day, our financial position is night and day from where it was. I mean, there's just no question about it, and it's headed in the right direction, on a regular basis. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Tom, do you have anything? David? Nothing? Okay, then this has been a fairly quick meeting. I had wanted to get out of here a little earlier. I want to recognize this. He's not going to make one tonight. So, anyway, I want to recognize Villa Rica High School as being STEM certified. That happened tonight at 6:30. There was a ceremony. I had intended to attend that. It didn't work out because it just happened to be on the night of our council meeting, and I couldn't get out of here to do it. However, Glanton Heinzman will also be recognized next Wednesday for their STEM certification. So if you can, I think they have a small event over there. I don't know how many people will be there, but maybe we'll put the information out. That's a significant recognition. We're proud of our schools here. The fact is, my understanding is that only 5% of schools in the entire country are recognized as STEM certified. So I want to recognize our schools for that accomplishment. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Woo, that was quick. I don't even know who got that. I'm going to leave that to Teresa. All right, a second. Nobody wants a second.
Second.
Oh, all right, I have a second from Ms. McCoy. All right, all in favor?